Six of Crows is like Hustle, but with magic. The Six of Crows is a YA novel by Leigh Bardugo, set in the same world as the Shadow and Bone books, which have recently been made into a Netflix show. However, instead of being a chosen one story, or a rebellion against an evil corporation or capitalist regime, Six of Crows is a heist novel, in line with things like Hustle, or Mission Impossible. That counts. They break into places and steal things. So, Kaz Brecker is a criminal with a dark reputation. He is offered the opportunity of a lifetime. The reward? Enough money to retire 10 times over. All he and his team of teenage misfits have to do is bust some magical drug-making scientists out of an impenetrable fortress in the mountains without dying. No biggie. Firstly, this book is super fun to read. I love heist stories anyway, so, you know, it's already right up my alley. So yeah, just from a plot point of view, it's really good fun. The characters are also good fun. They all feel quite distinct from each other, and they all play sort of vital roles in the heist as well, so they all feel equally important, which is really nice to see. The dialogue is quite funny. There's a lot of banter between the characters, lots of teasing and in-jokes, and stuff that just makes it feel quite real. There aren't many people who are serious 100% of the time, especially teenagers, and the characters are all teenagers. So it did feel quite genuine, all their sort of teasing and banter. There are a ton of twists and turns in the story. Some I saw coming, some I didn't. I suppose arguably some of the twists could have been foreshadowed a little more, because pretty much all of them came out of nowhere. I don't mind that they come out of nowhere, but part of the fun of these heist stories are seeing something happen that isn't explained, so you're left trying to work out what it is and how it plays into the story before it's finally revealed at a critical moment. So there was nothing like that. Most of the twists of the heist were more of, character A looks to be in trouble, but actually it was part of the plan all along, which I don't mind, because they also have an important part in heist stories, but all of the twists were like that, so I guess it was a missed opportunity, but, you know, never mind. I also think the magic system was quite neat. The magic users are called Grisha? I don't know how to pronounce it. And they have sort of very specific abilities which stop them from being overpowered, unless they take the aforementioned magic drug, but you know. The world building actually as well feels quite solid, but under the surface. It's not really brought up a lot, but you can kind of tell it's there, with a lot of background mentions of things like past civil wars, relations between countries, and things like that that just make the world feel quite real and also very vast. It feels very big. And I think they've done a good job of having a small story in a big world, so kudos for that. There are far too many flashbacks in this book. Kaz, Inej, Nina and Matthias all have backstories written as full-on scenes, in several scenes actually. They're split up into sort of lots of little bits. And I just don't think we needed them. Some of them do feel necessary, but I feel a lot of it could have been given through implication, thoughts or dialogue. Especially Inej. The book does do a good job of inferring some of her backstory as an acrobat through her thoughts when she's thinking about her father whilst like trying to perform some difficult task. But the actual scenes of her backstory don't really offer information that I found particularly relevant or necessary. Nina and Matthias's history together could have been easily told through dialogue, perhaps to other characters wondering about how they know each other when the peoples to which they belong hate each other, kind of like the Montagues and the Capulets. Actually, Kaz's backstory is the only one I think I'd leave alone, because he's such a mysterious character, and it is interesting getting to know how he sort of became the criminal he is now. As at the beginning of the book, he's seen as a sort of almost like a devil. but his backstory doesn't come up till about halfway through, maybe, and in sections, and the backstory written as it is does a good job of humanising him. So I'd leave his, but the others, I think there was another way of doing them, because there were just so many flashbacks and it got a bit tiring. Following on from this, there is far too much use of the past perfect tense, which is she had done this, he had said that, the hads. And it's the tense you use to describe past events when you're already writing in the past tense. And it is unavoidable for the most part. But there's just so much of it, especially in like the first half. Almost every chapter had some of this tense in it. Sometimes it's describing things that happened a few hours ago. Sometimes it describes things that happened 10 minutes ago. Which means we're forced into this awkward tense, and past perfect is an awkward tense. It's horribly clunky and should be avoided when possible. So we're forced into it when we really oughtn't be. There's a chapter which starts with a character thinking about what everyone else is talking about. And then you go back to what really is only a few minutes previously, when he had first woken up, and then they start talking, and then it sort of leads back into the present. So the sort of narration does a little loop-de-loop, when we could have just started when he woke up and progress naturally through, rather than go back and then go... So yeah, it's bits like that. You feel like you could have avoided a lot of the past present, the past perfect even. So yeah, that was a bit irritating. I found the book a little bit difficult to follow as well for a few reasons. Firstly, the opening chapters throw a lot of fantasy names at you. Not just character names, but there's place names, country names, types of magic, ethnicities, slang. There's a lot of it, and it took me a while to sort of get it all in my head, and even then, I didn't have it all in my head. Like, one character is described as being Zemini, but I don't know what that means with regards to like what he looks like, because I've forgotten how they're described physically, and it doesn't give you any more description apart from just being Zemini after that, and I was like, I don't know what he looks like, I've forgotten. Oh no. So that was a bit annoying. Possibly it's because Leigh Bardugo wrote Shadow and Bone about 3 years before she wrote Six of Crows, so maybe she thought that people who were reading this had already read other books set in the same universe and therefore be more familiar with it. Which I get, but... Or maybe I'm just forgetful, I don't know. There is also a lack of dialogue tags at times, with lots of conversation just sort of floating untethered in the page, which meant sometimes I wasn't sure who was talking. Sometimes it's okay. If there's two characters and they both have very distinct voices, you can get away with it, but sometimes I couldn't remember who was there, because you'd have the characters, 4 characters doing something, and then you follow one character and he's looking and describing things, and suddenly he asks a question, and then the reply is just given by a he, and I'm like, I don't remember which one he's with now, and I had to flip back a few paragraphs to work out who it would probably talking back to. It just, if they just put the name in, Wylan replied instead of he replied, I wouldn't have had to do that. So it's a bit, it could have been more specific with regards to characters and where they are. And thirdly, it was difficult to follow because I found the description lacking somewhat when it came to physical spaces, especially in the Ice Court, which is where the heist takes place. We do have a handy dandy map in the front of the book, which I appreciate because I love maps. But I didn't really get a sense of scale, so I wasn't quite sure how long it took to get across places. There's an island in the middle called the White Island, but I don't know how big it is. So that was a little bit confusing. At one point, like, some of the characters were trying to break through a glass window, but I didn't remember where the window was, or how high up, or how big, or what it overlooked. So I kind of got a bit lost, and I didn't know what they were doing, or why, or what they were trying to get to on the other side. And it happened in a few places when there were sort of physical scenes, and I didn't get a sense of place and how the characters were interacting with that place. It sort of has the same problem that the final fight scene in Justice League had, the Whedon version, not the Snyder Cut, which did actually fix it, sort of. The sense of physical place isn't set up strongly enough, so when characters move through it, we struggle to follow them. Finally, I had a couple of minor nitpicks. Like, the first 2 chapters were a little bit boring, because they were literally just following characters who are watching other characters do stuff, instead of doing something themselves, so that was a little dull. And secondly, I question the characters' ages, because all the main characters are teenagers. And yet half of them already have, like, cool reputations and are really, really great at these specific skills that would usually take people several years to master. And I just sort of went, really? He's like 17 and he's already this prodigy? Are we really going with that? You know, the main character went from, like, a nobody to a master criminal with the reputation of a psycho in, like, a few years. He hasn't been caught in 4 years, and apparently that makes him uncatchable, when to most criminals that would be, like, nothing. And then there were sort of 2 other characters had been soldiers and drafted in the war and then been out of it for at least a year. And they're still only, like, 17 and 18? So, like, how old were they when they got drafted? Like, 13? It just didn't sit right. It didn't sound right to me at all. And maybe it's because I'm now an adult, so to me, all teenagers are children. But it was just very jarring. And I think even if those characters that I mentioned had just been aged up to, like, even just 20, I would have had a better time believing it. But I guess it's YA, therefore it's kind of meant to be about teenagers, so teenagers can put themselves in the character's shoes. But I found it a little hard to believe. So 6 of Crows is a really fun read. It's a good attempt at converting a hustle-esque story into a book form, but unfortunately some of the reveal scenes didn't translate very well. If this was presented to me at a workshop, I probably would have suggested fewer flashbacks, more straightforward timeline of narration, and spreading out the distribution of information and fantasy terms to help streamline the book, and a light sprinkling of names at the beginning of conversations and more detailed description to make it easier to follow. But overall, I really enjoyed it, and I would recommend it to fans of YA looking for something a little different to the Chosen One, Teenage Rebellion, or paranormal romance books which currently line those shelves. And that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.